Ever pondered the impact of the Ku Klux Klan on society? A name that rings with notoriety, the Ku Klux Klan, often known as the KKK, has left an indelible mark on the fabric of American history. Born from the ashes of the Civil War, their sinister robes and masks have haunted the nation's consciousness, embodying a dark legacy of hatred and violence. But who are they really? What fuels their actions? Dive in as we unravel the history of the KKK and its influence on society. The seeds of the KKK were sown in the aftermath of the Civil War. It was a time of great change and turmoil in America. The southern states, defeated and humiliated, were grappling with the reality of a newly freed black population. And in this crucible of resentment and fear, the Ku Klux Klan was born in the year 1865. The Klan initially was nothing more than a social club for disgruntled Confederate veterans in Pulaski, Tennessee. But as word spread, the group's focus shifted. Fueled by a toxic mix of white supremacy and bitter resentment, these men decided they would take matters into their own hands. Their immediate goal was to reverse the advancements made by black people during Reconstruction. They intended to re-establish white control in the South by any means necessary. These means often included intimidation, violence, and even murder. The Klan's methods were brutal and their message was clear. They would not accept a society where black people were considered equals. The Klan's influence grew rapidly. By 1868, they had established a significant presence across the South. Their reign of terror was so severe that it prompted the federal government to intervene. A series of laws, known as the Enforcement Acts, were introduced in the early 1870s to protect the rights of black citizens and suppress Klan activities. However, the damage had already been done. The Klan's reign of terror had successfully instilled fear and suppressed black political power in the South. While the original Klan was disbanded by 1870, their ideology lived on. The seeds they'd sown in those early years would sprout anew in the decades to follow, giving rise to a second wave of Klan activity in the early 20th century. The KKK, though disbanded in 1870, left a lasting imprint. Their legacy of hate and intolerance continues to echo through society today, a chilling reminder of a dark chapter in American history. The phoenix of hatred rose from its ashes in the 20th century. Like a malevolent specter refusing to rest, the Ku Klux Klan experienced a resurgence in the early 1910s, reaching its peak in the 1920s. This was not the same Klan of the Reconstruction era. The shroud of secrecy had lifted somewhat, and the group now paraded their beliefs openly, marching down main streets in broad daylight, their numbers swelling into the millions. They were no longer a fringe group, but a mainstream organization with influence in politics and society. The Klan's focus had shifted too. While their hatred for African Americans remained, they broadened their scope to include immigrants, Catholics, and Jews. This was a time of great change in America as new faces and cultures arrived on its shores. The Klan, however, saw these changes as threats to their vision of a pure, white, Protestant America. Their activities during this period were sinisterly diverse. They held rallies and parades, spreading their vitriol and sowing fear. They infiltrated politics, influencing policies and legislation that favored their cause. They even managed to get members elected to high offices, further cementing their power. Their influence was pervasive, affecting every facet of American life. They dictated social norms, pressured businesses to hire only true Americans, and even influenced education, pushing for Americanism to be taught in schools. Through fear, intimidation, and manipulation, they enforced their warped vision of America. However, the Klan's power was not to last. Scandals, corruption, and the economic turmoil of the Great Depression led to a significant decline in their membership and influence. By the end of the 1930s, the Klan was but a shadow of its former self, a ghost haunting the annals of American history. Yet again, the KKK faded into obscurity, but not for long. For like a malignant phantom, the Klan has a knack for resurrection, always waiting in the shadows for the right moment to rise again. The KKK, like a stubborn weed, refuses to disappear. Even now in the 21st century, their presence is felt, their influence still seeping into the underbelly of society. The modern clan, though fragmented and less centralized than its earlier incarnations, continues to uphold the same troubling beliefs. The core tenets of white supremacy and racial purity remain, fueled by a toxic mix of fear, ignorance, and hatred. While their numbers are nowhere near the heights of the mid-20th century, their existence cannot be dismissed, nor their impact underestimated. In recent years, the clan has sought to rebrand itself, donning a mask of respectability. They've traded in their notorious white robes for business suits, their fiery crosses for websites and social media platforms, but make no mistake, the wolf has merely changed its clothing. The underlying ideology remains as corrosive as ever. They claim to be defenders of a so-called white culture under threat, but let's be clear, their notion of culture is a distorted one built on a foundation of exclusion and bigotry. Their activities, from hate speech to acts of intimidation, are a stark reminder that the fight against racism is far from over. The clan's influence has also been felt politically. They've managed to infiltrate various layers of government, hiding behind the veneer of mainstream politics. Their goal, to push policies that further their agenda, sowing division and fostering a climate of fear. In the digital age, the clan has adapted, using the internet as a recruitment tool. They've developed a sophisticated online presence, spreading their toxic ideology to a global audience. They've weaponized the anonymity of the web, enabling them to spread their message with impunity. The KKK's ability to persist, to adapt, to continue spreading their message of hate is a chilling reminder of the dark corners of our society. We must remain vigilant, actively challenging their narrative and working to dismantle the structures that allow such groups to flourish. The KKK's legacy unfortunately continues to cast a long shadow. Let us ensure that the shadow does not darken our future. Let us work towards a world where hate has no place, where all are treated with dignity and respect. The fight continues. The KKK's influence extends beyond its members. This chilling truth reverberates across time, embedding itself within the fabric of our society in ways that may not be immediately apparent. The KKK, with its white hoods and burning crosses, has become a symbol of racial hatred, inspiring and influencing similar groups that have taken up the mantle of white supremacy. This web of extremism spreads across the globe, from the Aryan nations in the United States to the National Front in the United Kingdom, and even the Afrikaner resistance movement in South Africa. These groups, while distinct in their formation, share the common thread of an ideology rooted in the KKK's doctrine of racial superiority. The KKK's influence has also seeped into the realm of politics and media, with its rhetoric often repackaged and sanitized for wider consumption. The language of white supremacy, once confined to clandestine meetings and secret codes, now finds a home in public discourse, hidden beneath layers of dog whistles and coded language. This legacy of the KKK is not just confined to the fringes of society. It manifests itself in systemic racism, where the machinery of institutions has been weaponized against marginalized communities. It's seen in the over-policing of black neighborhoods, racial profiling, and the school-to-prison pipeline. It's a system that thrives on inequality, a haunting echo of the KKK's doctrine. Yet it's important to remember that the KKK's influence is not an indomitable force. It is a construct born out of fear and ignorance, and it can be dismantled. Each of us has a part to play in this by challenging these ideologies when we encounter them, by educating ourselves and others, and by standing in solidarity with those targeted by hate. The KKK may have faded from the headlines, its members dwindling and its power diminished. But its echoes still resound within society, shaping attitudes and influencing policy. The KKK, though diminished, leaves behind a troubling legacy. But it is a legacy that we as a society have the power to confront and dismantle. The KKK's history is a dark chapter in American history. This organization, steeped in a legacy of racial intolerance, has left indelible scars on the fabric of American society. Born from the ashes of the Civil War, the KKK sought to maintain the old order of white supremacy through intimidation, violence, and even murder. Their roots, deeply entwined with the history of racism in America, have left a trail of crimes and activities that have shocked and appalled the world. From their formation in the late 19th century to their resurgence in the 20th, the KKK's actions have been a stark reminder of the depths to which fear and hatred can drive humanity. In the modern era, their presence persists in shadows, their members blending into society, their activities less overt but no less insidious. They stand as a chilling testament to the enduring nature of hate and the lengths some will go to preserve their perceived supremacy. Their influence has not been confined to America alone. Numerous racist and radical groups worldwide have drawn inspiration from the KKK, spreading their venomous ideology of racial superiority and hatred. The KKK's story is a grim reminder of the destructive power of hatred and intolerance. As we navigate through our present and into our future, we must remain vigilant against such forces and strive for a society that values equality, understanding, and unity above all.